All right. All right. So thank you everybody for coming. No, we're having some technical difficulties, but thanks for being patient, sticking through it. So this is the admin zone session. So we'll be doing an overview of the admin zone, how to function in your positions, and we'll go over some general board management practices. So I'm Jonathan Tyler. I'm the Region 4 chair. And so this presentation was put together jointly with Region 3. With the Region 3 chair, Mike. So let's get started. So today's lineup, just went through a brief introduction, then we'll go over the admin zone overview. So purpose and some duties. Then we'll go through zone management, zone performance and management 101. Then we'll do a recap. And then if there's time, we'll do some Q&A. And then talk briefly about the road ahead. Okay, so brief overview of the admin zone. So the president is the zone lead. And then underneath the president, you have the vice president, president emeritus, secretary, treasurer, programs chair, and the parliamentarian. So basically, all the leads of the other zones, plus your parliamentarian and your president emeritus. I know some chapters, they also use the term chair, chair-elect, and chair emeritus, just like we do at the regional national level. So why do we have an admin zone? So as an admin zone, you're responsible for scanning the external environment, keeping an eye out for opportunities and threats. So opportunities to improve your chapter and anything that threatens the success of your chapter. So you're kind of the gatekeepers. You're responsible for establishing and communicating clear vision and strategy to the chapter. And you're responsible for attracting, aligning, motivating, and retaining a diverse, talented, and skilled board of directors. And you want to build a strong, functional, and cross-functional team where everybody understands their role and how to execute the strategy. And as a zone, you want to hold your teams and your individual team members accountable to produce results. So getting into the duties of the president. So as a president, you have some external and internal duties. So externally, you're responsible for creating the vision and the direction for your chapter. You're the spokesperson for the chapter. So you're the one that has the authority to speak on behalf of the chapter. And you're a liaison between the chapter board and the regional chair. So regional chair cascades information down to you, you cascade information down to your chapter, and then in the reverse direction, you gather feedback from your chapter and escalate that to the regional chair. So you're that go-between. And you're responsible for implementing any national or regional programs that come down from national regional leadership. And you're supposed to attend any chapter counterpart calls that are held. Now, one of the things that you're responsible for as president is to make sure that your chapter executive board officers are listed in NSBE Connect, because that's how we know who your leaders are and know that you're an active chapter. So the membership zone training will go through in more detail about keeping up with all that, but basically as a chapter president, you have the power to go into NSBE Connect and edit your chapter officer list. And also internally, it's a good idea to keep a running list of chapter contacts. So the image on the right is just an example of what we use on the Region 4 Professionals Board. So we maintain a list of all the chapter leaders in our region. So you could do something similar within your chapter so everybody knows who to contact and how to contact them. Now, internally, your role as president, you oversee the admin zone. You're responsible for appointing new board members, and which positions can and cannot be appointed comes down to how your chapter constitution is set up. So that varies from chapter to chapter. Also, you're responsible for presenting ideas and proposing the overall direction of the chapter, and you oversee the activities of the chapter executive board. Any questions so far? All right. And that last duty, overseeing the chapter executive board, that's something that you may want to place more on your vice president, and we'll go into that in a little bit. So as a vice president, your duties are to oversee the membership zone. You're responsible for preparing meeting agendas for your chapter executive board meetings. You review progress on chapter, regional, and national goals, and you attend your chapter counterpart calls. Now, those duties, you might notice that there's a little bit of overlap between the president and the vice president, but there is a difference. So as the president, you're more of the visionary, you're more of the big ideas, big picture person. So you provide the overall direction, you develop plans and initiatives, you inspire trust in your team. You're more concerned with the long range perspective. You're the one that asks the questions, what and why. What are we going to do? Why are we going to do it? And like I mentioned before, you're the speaker for the chapter. And the vice president, you're more of the hustler. Like you're the enforcer. So you administer the plans that the president has laid out. You maintain what's been developed. You're responsible for driving execution. You're more concerned with the short range day-to-day view. And the questions you ask are how and when. How are we going to do these things and when are they going to be done? And you should be a soundboard for your president, bouncing ideas off of them, providing feedback, telling them when you don't think it's a good idea to do something or when you do think it's a good idea. So you should have that relationship. So any questions about that difference between president and vice president? All right. So just some general tips for managing the board. So first of all, know your board. So you want to know who your people are, know their strengths and weaknesses, and be able to put everybody in the best position to succeed. And you want to set the expectations right at the beginning of what you want everybody to do, how you expect things to be handled, and make sure you remind people throughout the year what those expectations are. So in terms of strategic planning, like overall what you expect each leader to do, have a plan for how you're going to address when someone misses a deadline or if someone doesn't do what they said they were going to do, and make sure everybody agrees with the expectations and understands what the consequences are if those expectations aren't met. So it's a good idea to define some tool for tracking your activities. There are a variety of tools out there that you can use. Just find something that works best for your chapter to be able to keep track of what you're doing, have a reference for what's been accomplished, what still needs to be done. VP follow-up is important. So as we mentioned, the VP is responsible for overseeing the day-to-day duties of the executive board. So, the president and the vice president and definitely need to be in constant communication about what's going on, and be able to follow up with individual team members as needed. And then last one, I highly encourage this, set aside some dedicated time to work on NSBE stuff. So it could be a certain day of the week at certain times. What we do on the regional and national boards, we have what we call office hours, where there are specific times during the week that we set aside that we promise to work on NSBE stuff. That's good, because then if you need to ask somebody a question or need help with something, you know what times are best to contact them, because they'll be working on NSBE stuff during that time. So it's something you can do at the chapter level as well, have dedicated NSBE time where you can talk to people about what's going on. Now, on any board, you're going to sometimes have conflicts, so you have to be able to resolve those conflicts. So the way you can handle conflicts is to keep NSBE safe. So what do you mean by that? So first, seek to understand. So understand where the other person's coming from and their point of view, why they feel the way they do. Then you want to ask, what do the governing documents say? So a lot of disputes can be avoided by referring back to the governing documents, because that should be your chapter's Bible, that lets you know what you can and cannot do in a variety of situations. So if the governing documents say this is how it has to be, then in the discussion, that's how it has to be. You want to address the situation like an engineer. So, we've all been to school, we all know how to think critically and logically. So, just like you would solve a problem at work, approach the conflict the same way, try to understand it and figure out the most logical approach to resolving it, and then follow the chain of command. So you have a dispute between two members of the board, they can't hash out, then escalate it to the zone lead. Then if you still can't resolve it there, escalate it to the chapter president. And then if there's still an issue, then escalate to the regional board counterpart. And then, it's important to document what happened and how it was resolved, so that if the situation comes up in the future, you won't have to go through all this again. You already know how to handle it. So, any questions before I move on? All right. So we just talked a lot about what you do as a leader in the admin zone, but another important question we need to ask is why. So why are we doing this? When you understand your why, your what becomes a lot more impactful. When you have a purpose and you understand what that purpose is, then everything else just falls into place, because you're walking in that purpose and you're motivated, so you have a much higher impact. So now we're going to go into some general tips about zone performance and management. So hopefully these tips will help you to become a higher performing team. And a higher performing team would be is a small group of people that's collectively responsible for achieving a common objective for their organization. Now, there's a book, it's a very well-known book, I'm sure many of you have read it, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. So in the book, it defines 5 areas where teams struggle to be effective. And these 5 areas are absence of trust, fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. And the book lays out how an organization can overcome each of these dysfunctions to become a higher performer. So higher performing teams do the opposite of those things. They have a high degree of trust. They embrace conflict around ideas positively. So I know we just talked about how to resolve conflicts, but some conflict is good as long as it's about ideas and not about politics, internal politics. Effective teams, they push for clarity and closure, make sure everybody understands what the goals are and how to get there. They confront difficult issues together. They're not afraid to address the elephant in the room. And they focus on collective results or outcomes as opposed to individual goals. Now, there's some further ways that you can carry out these, five areas, but in the interest of time, I won't go through them in detail. You'll have the slides after the fact so you can read through them. So the big idea here is that organizations, instead of trying to become smarter, they should focus on becoming healthier, because a healthy team is able to tap into the skills and the intelligence that's already there in its members. And then, to be successful, there should be a growth cycle of learning, forming a plan, executing that plan, evaluating the results, and then repeating. So learning how to be an effective manager, how to evaluate performance, and how to set targets, and then getting that feedback of what went well, what didn't, and applying those lessons learned to the next task. And when you're making your plans for the year, you want to focus on purpose. So you want to start with the why that we mentioned before. What's the motivation for, why you're doing what you do? Then you align your why with the how. So how you actually execute, and then you manage with the what. So goal setting, project planning, and whatever resources that will help you execute your plan. And a rule of thumb, not just for NSBE leadership, but for life in general. So there are things that matter, and there are things that you can control. And there's only a small area where they overlap. And that's the area where you should focus your energy. Because if something matters, but there's nothing you can do to control it, why waste time worrying about it? Because there's nothing you can do anyway. And if it's something you can control, but it doesn't matter, then it should be a low priority, or you should drop it all together. Focus on the things that that you can control that matter. So I'm not sure if the images are. It looks like the images are missing. I don't know why it's showing like this, but basically, that slide is saying that that there should be a constant feedback loop of evaluating performance, providing that feedback, and that leads to self-improvement. So when you have that feedback loop, you're able to figure out how you can do better, how the team can do better, and how you can partner together. And then when you're goal setting, you should keep smart targets in mind. I'm sure we've all heard of this: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So using those 5 areas when goal setting helps to ensure that the goals you set can actually be achieved. And then here's just some performance management tools that you might want to use to help you be a more effective manager. So won't go through all of them in detail, but just a few I want to highlight. So one-on-ones are a really good tool. As an admin zone, you have a general idea of what your team members are doing, but you may not always know the details. So it's good to have one-on-ones with your team members. Utilize the regional professional executive boards. We're here to help you. Any help and guidance we can provide, we're ready to go. So tap us as a resource. Offline time is really important because we want to avoid burnout. So set time aside where nobody is expected to do any NSBE work, so that everybody can recharge and be fresh for the next task at hand. And kudos, giving recognition and congratulations to team members for a job well done, because everybody wants to feel appreciated. So just to recap, delegation is important. You can't do everything, so you want to trust your team members to handle their business. And if you've developed a good team, you don't have to worry. They're going to get it done. You should try to start grooming a few potential successors. Start early on to try to identify people who might be good successors to your position. And there are a variety of ways you could do this. You could set up a committee for some project and give people a chance to lead that committee so they can get a taste of leadership. Or you could have a shadow initiative where interested people can shadow you for a while and see what it's like to be a board member. As an admin zone, you're responsible for making sure CHIP reports are being submitted, and obviously CHIP we're refining it, so it won't be exactly what we've been doing, but so you get that information later. Mentor local collegiate chapter presidents. If you have any collegiate NSBE chapters in your area, it's good to establish that connection. Document everything, as we mentioned before, because it helps you to stay organized. It helps to resolve conflicts quickly, and it helps with your successors so that they know what you did, so that they're better set up for success. As we mentioned, trust your team. So if you built a good team, you should be able to trust that they'll get the job done. Remember, a different way isn't necessarily a wrong way. Just because it's not how you would do it doesn't mean it won't work. And make sure you over communicate with your regional and national counterparts, so you know best what's going on the ground. So anything you need help with, any concerns that you have, communicate those to your regional and national leaders, because we're here to help. And remember, above all, you're doing amazing work. It matters a whole lot, and you're greatly appreciated. So any questions before we move on? All right. That was about it. And I think we have a few minutes left. Is there anything that I didn't cover that you're wondering about? I know we focused mostly on president and vice president. Are there any parliamentarians in here? Because I know we didn't really talk much about them.
This is Fatima from Detroit Professionals. Just moved into the chair emeritus position for this year, but I just wanted to say thank you. This has been an awesome presentation. I loved how you included some, practical skills as well as soft skills to the presentation with resources. So I just want to say great job, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you. Try to incorporate not just, the specific day-to-day duties, but, how you can actually be effective at executing. So any other questions or comments?
Hey, John, this is Kirsten. Just another quick question. Hello, everyone. I'm from Detroit Professionals. I'm the Detroit Professionals chair. Regarding the core officers being input into the NSBE Connect, if you don't have all of your core officers listed, are you still considered? Can you still be considered an active chapter? Like if you don't have a programs chair or another core position?
Yeah, so as far as verifying that a chapter is active, that's a year-long process. You know, we're constantly evaluating throughout the year, and we understand that not everybody has their full board together right at the start of the year. So just put in whichever officer you have now, and then as you add people, update it. And you know, there is some flexibility if for whatever reason you couldn't fill a position, like maybe you never got a programs chair, for example. There is a process for petitioning the membership zone to get a waiver. So it typically involves writing a letter to the national membership chair and explaining the situation and asking for an exemption. And the membership zone will review that, and if they feel your reason is legit, you know, they'll grant that exemption. You can still be considered an active chapter.
Okay, so generally to be active, you need all of those positions filled in addition to the 10 national paid members.
Yep, so the 5 core positions, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, programs chair, and then you need at least 10 paid members.
Okay, and all of the core positions are, well, I guess, yeah, they have to be nationally paid as well if they're on the board. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, John.
No problem. Anything else? All right. So last thing, the road ahead is just something for everybody to think about. So if the admin zone can only do one thing this year for NSBE to be successful, what must that be? So we don't need answers in here, but just something for you to think about. So, and the other question is, if NSBE doesn't effectively begin the implementation of Game Change 2025 this term, why would it be the admin zone's fault? And again, it's not something to answer here, just a question for you to think about. And last but not least, we'd like your feedback about this session. So you can click on the link or scan the QR code and just fill out the brief survey afterwards to let us know what you thought to help us be better for next year. All right, that's about it. Thank you everybody for coming. And we'll see you at the next session.
Hey, John, real quick. I just clicked on the link and it went to an invalid site. So just FYI, I don't know if anyone else experienced that.
All right, let me see if I could grab the link and post it in the chat.
I use the QR code from my phone and I'm able to get to the form.
Okay, maybe I can try that way then.
Hey, Jonathan, I think there's an extra digit in the link. That's why it didn't work.
Okay. Okay, there it is in the chat. All right, well, we're done. So unless anyone has any other questions, and you're
Are we
dismissed
to
to
return to the main Microsoft Zone thing? Is that what we're doing? Or are we done for the day?
So next is, so there's 3 different workshops to choose from. So if you go back to the agenda, you can choose one of the 3 links.
How do I see that?
So did you get
That?
an email?
Oh, it's an email. Okay.
Yeah.